Can you see the slides? You can
Yeah,
see the
I can
slides,
see.
yeah?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, sorry?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, good. So today's unit that we'll be doing is communication skills for health and social care. And we're looking at learning outcome 2 today. Yeah, in the last session, we looked at unit outcome, learning outcome 1, which was to know how health and social care organizations communicate. And today we're looking at learning outcome 2. I'm going to give you a summary of what we did in the last session, which was learning outcome 1, so you've got a better understanding of what we've done.
Okay.
So the unit was to look at principles of effective communication. So we looked at the different forms of communication and why communication is so important within the health and social care sector. We also looked at the principle of effective communication, and we looked at models of communication, business model of communication, which is the process and not separate system rather than a way to represent the various objects. We looked at models of communication, the importance of that. We also looked at the different types of communication models, which was things like Aristotle model, Laswell's model, Warren Weaver's model, Screm's model, Riley's model, and Berlow's model, and contemporary model. Now, all these are on the slides for you to refer to if you need to. And when it comes to doing your assignment discussion, we'll go through it a little bit more. So then we looked at describing communication models and systems used in the health and social care and why it's so important. Why do you think effective communication is so important in health and social care, Ashu? Why do you think we need good communication?
Because without communication, we can send a message to another person.
Yeah, we can communicate and send messages, maybe it be verbally or through emails. We can do that. We then went on to look at the issue in regards to communication in health and social care and why there's a need to have communication. We looked at theories of communication. We looked at the humanist theory, cognitive theory, social theory, behavioral theory, and psychoanalytical theory, and what was the importance of each one. We then went on to look at the benefits of both informal and formal communication within the health and social care profession, with reference to examples as well. We went on to look at what verbal communication is. So that's, where one person speaks and another person listens. And then we went on to look at non-verbal communication. And what can be non-verbal communication, Ashu?
Body language.
Body language is so important. Why is body language so important?
Because body language have a important role in communication.
Yeah, it could,
If you're sad or
yes, if you're
anything,
sad or if your behavior or appearance, it sends a message, doesn't it?
yeah.
So we looked at the different types of body language, facial expression, body language, touching. We looked at signs, symbols, and objects of reference, technological aids, human aids, alternative forms of communication. We also looked at the importance of signs and things. We looked at the different types of communication. And then we went on to look at barriers of communication. What does barriers of communication mean?
Hearing problems.
Yeah. What else could be a barrier, Ashu? What about things like culture, language,
Culture,
disability?
language,
Yeah,
disabilities. Yeah.
these are barriers to communication. So if you can't communicate to someone with a different language, it's very difficult to identify, what they are trying to say. We also looked at effective communication in health and social care and understanding language needs and preferences. And we looked at electronic devices, what were used in health and social care. Now we're going to be looking at learning outcome 2, which is to be able to interact orally with individuals in health and social care. Why do you think it's so important to interact orally with someone in health and social care?
Because the orally communication is the most important. Because without communication, we can't understand each other. Because the orally communication is the most important. Because without communication, we can't understand each other. 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 Because Because it will help to understand other person's needs.
To understand what the other person's saying, but also to understand what that person wants to get across to you. It may be some people may have a disability, they may not be able to, understand things properly. So how they can get things across. So communication is not just about what we say verbally, but also what we say through our actions. Our actions, for example, like you said, if you are sad, what would you have, a sad face?
Yes.
Yeah, so our actions play a big part in, identifying the importance of, what we are saying. Our bodies and faces express how we are feeling and what we are saying in many different ways. So if you're bored, you're going to make a frown. If you're happy, you're going to smile. Without using any words, see if you can use your body language to convey the following emotions: happy, anxious, if you're in pain, if you're frightened. People who work in the health and social care settings may communicate with the people they are caring for, with relatives and visitors, with colleagues and other practitioners from other care agencies, and for a variety of different reasons. 2.1, use different styles and methods of oral communication to meet the needs of different individuals. Different types of communication. So practitioners working in health and social care and early years settings need to be able to communicate in different ways with individuals and others, including their colleagues, other professionals they work with, and families, individuals, families, and advocates. There are 4 types of communication skills that practitioners must be able to understand and use: verbal, non-verbal, written, and specialist. So the first one is verbal.
Okay.
Verbal or spoken communication can provide others with clues about who you are and how you are feeling. For example, practitioners who feel confident in their abilities will tend to speak more clearly and positively than practitioners who don't. Communicating with clarity involves sharing information with others clearly and accurately in a way that they easily understand, by pronouncing words clearly, not mumbling, and using words that are respectful. It also involves being receptive to communication from others, listening attentively and confirming an understanding of what is being expressed. It can therefore include both written and spoken communication. However, many people use the term to describe only spoken communication. The verbal element of communication is all about the words that you choose and how they are heard and interpreted. There are a large number of different verbal communication skills. They range from the obvious, being able to speak clearly and listening, as we mentioned earlier, to a more subtle, such as reflecting and clarifying. It is important to remember that effective verbal communication cannot be fully isolated from non-verbal communication. Your body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions, for example. Clarity of speech, remaining calm and focused, being polite, and following some basic rules of etiquette will aid the process of verbal communications. Effective speaking involves 3 main areas: the words you choose, how you say them, and how you reinforce them with non-verbal communication. Do you think it's very important to have, communicate verbally properly with someone so that they don't misunderstand you?
Yes.
Do you think it's important that you communicate?
Yes, I think it's important because we don't have a proper communication. Some errors will happen.
They'll misunderstand, won't they, what you're saying? For
Yes,
example, when you meet someone and hear them speak, you form a judgment about their background and likely level of ability and understanding. This might well change what you say. If you hear a foreign accent, for example, you might decide that you need to use simpler language. You might also realize that you need to listen more carefully to ensure that you understand what they are saying. So, for example, like, someone who can't speak the language, you have to be, careful and talk at a pace that they understand. So that's verbal skills. And we've got
Okay.
non-verbal skills as well. And we mentioned that in the last session, Learning Outcome 1, but also it's important to identify the non-verbal skills. So that could be your facial expression, your gestures, your posture, your tone of voice are powerful communication skills. You know, how you talk to someone is so important. Because, you know, it might come across as you're being abrupt or rude, you know. So your non-verbal communication cues, the way you listen, the way you look, the way you move and react, tell the person you're communicating with whether or not you care. If you're being truthful and how well you're listening, when your non-verbal signals match up with the words you're saying, they increase their trust and clarity. When they don't, they can generate mistrust and confusion. So, you know, you can be talking to someone and your body language changes, you know, so it's so important that you are able to, you know, there's things like non-verbal communication can be your facial expression. That gives it away quite quick, you know, that you're sad or you're happy or you're confused, your body language and your posture. So, you know, you may touch someone on the arm if they're upset, your gestures, you know, that you may, you know, point at someone, or when you're arguing, eye contact is a big one, and touching and space as well is a big one. So these are different types of non-verbal communication. So 2.2, demonstrate appropriate listening skills. Why is listening skills so important? Why do you think listening skills are so important?
Because if you have a
Why is it
proper,
important in the Why is it important in the health and social care profession that you listen to somebody?
thing, sometimes you don't have proper listening,
So you
miscommunication.
understand what they're saying. You know, if you don't listen, you know, you interpret the message not effectively. Okay, so
Okay.
effective communication in care settings helps both care workers and people who use care services to form good relationships and to work well together. People communicate most effectively when they feel relaxed, are able to empathize with the other person, experience warmth and genuineness in the relationship, and the effective communication also requires the care worker to develop and use a range of skills, abilities, and communication techniques. Listening is the key to all effective communication. Without the ability to listen effectively, messages are easily misunderstood. As a result, communication breaks down, and the sender of the message can easily become frustrated or irritated. Listening is so important that many top employers provide listening skills training for their employees. This is not surprisingly when you consider that good listening skills can lead to a better customer satisfaction, greater productivity, and fewer mistakes, and increased sharing of information that in turn can lead to more creative and innovative work. Listening is very important and has benefits such as greater number of studies have shown that improved self-esteem and confidence, that where speaking raise blood pressure, attentive listening can bring it down. So it's really important when you talk to somebody that you identify that you are paying attention. You know, that person, if you're listening to that person and, you know, you're not paying any attention, then, you know, the person's going to get upset or not understand that you understand what they're saying. So listening is a really important process in regards to showing that you are listening and you are understanding what the person is saying. So we've got the SOLAR model of communication. The SOLAR model of communication developed by Gerard Egan and based on approaches used in counselling. The SOLAR model of communication shows how active listening can be demonstrated to others. So he said, sit squarely in relation to the person. This demonstrates that you are ready to listen. Open position, so open body language, indicates more attentive listening. This means not folding your arms. Lean slightly towards the person to whom you are listening. This indicates that you are interested in what they are saying, what the others has to say. Eye contact. Why is it important to maintain eye contact? Why do you think eye contact is so important?
If you don't have a proper eye contact, the other person will think you don't interested to their speech.
Yeah, so that you're maintaining good eye contact, you're listening to them, you're understanding what they are saying, and then relax. It is important to sit still without fidgeting, as this can distract other person. So, you know, for example, if you're sitting there and you are talking to someone, it's good that you're not fidgeting with your fingers or your hands or, you know, doing anything, because that will make them more nervous, you know, if they're talking. Active listening. A person who uses active listening listening pays close attention to what the other person is saying and notices the non-verbal messages they are communicating. People who are good at active listening also tend to be skilled at using minimal prompts. These are things like nods of the head, sounds, and encouraging words like yes, I see, or go on. Skillful use of minimal prompts encourages the person to keep speaking or to say a little more. Listening is one of the most important skills you have. How well you listen has a major impact on your job effectiveness, on the quality of your relationship with others. We listen to obtain information, we listen to understand, and we listen for enjoyment, we listen to learn. Given all the listening that we do, you would think that we'd be good at it. In fact, most of us are not, and research suggests that we only remember between 25% and 50% of what we hear. The way to improve your listening skills is to practice active listening. This is where you make a conscious effort to hear not only the words that other person is saying, but more importantly, the complete message being communicated. In order to do this, you must pay attention to the other person very carefully. So if you've got a patient, you must pay attention to them and allow them to, become, say what they want, and you to be less distracted. To enhance any of your listening skills, you need to let the other person know that you are listening to what they are saying. Acknowledgement can be something simple as just a nod, as we mentioned, or just moving your head. Using body language and other signs to acknowledge you are listening can also help pay attention. And, you know, it's really, really important that you listen properly to the individual, especially if it's someone quite vulnerable. If it's like an older person or someone who's got disabilities, if you kind of move away and say, oh yeah, I'm listening, but you don't pay attention, that person can get upset or anxious, that you are not listening. And they can identify if what they are saying, you are listening and understanding what they are saying. So it's so important as a healthcare professional or working in the healthcare sector that one of the skills that you have is one of the good skills you have is listening skills, because it identifies that you are paying attention to what the individual is saying. So if they are upset, if they are crying, and they just find out they're quite ill, they would need someone there for support, but also to listen to what they're going through. Listening and attending. So are by far the most important aspects of healthcare profession. Everyone needs to be listened to. If we can listen to someone, we can really help them. Curiously, some people don't consider listening as communication. To them, it seems odd that part of communication involves being quiet, but listening is vital to communication. Attending, it is the act of truly focusing on the other person. It involves consciously making ourselves aware of what a person is saying and what they are trying to communicate to us. It is concerned with our attention. Why is attention so important? Why is paying attention so important to someone?
Because you don't have attention to the speaker, the person will think you don't
Sorry, what did
have.
you say, Asha? I couldn't hear you.
Hello?
Well, yes, and now I can hear you. Yeah. Why do you think it's so important?
Uh, if you don't have attention, the person can think you don't interested the
Yeah.
person's talk.
You need to pay attention to what they're saying. You need to, acknowledge, the other person needs to acknowledge that you are engaged in the conversation, by
Yeah.
nodding your head and encouraging words such as yes and things like that. It's so important in health and social care profession. Aspects of listening. So we've got linguistic aspects of listening, which refer to the actual words and phrases used. Paralinguistics refers to all aspects of speech that are not words: timing, the tone, the volume, the pitch, and the accent. Non-verbal aspects of communication are body language. So we've got facial expression, the use of gestures, body position, movement, proximity to others. You've got to if you're talking to someone, you've got to be able to identify that you're listening. So how you sit, why does sitting make a why does sitting properly impact on your listening? If you're sitting in a chair, why is it so important?
Because it's making.
And you're sitting like like in a square position, like they've said here. Behavioral aspects are if you sit squarely in relation to the patient or the relative, it demonstrates that you are listening to that person, but also you are concentrating on what they're saying. You maintain an open position, so you lean towards the person. That's so important as well. You maintain reasonable eye contact with the person and you relax. It's important that you relax as an individual, because you need to be able to be listening to that person, so you need to be relaxing. And there's some skills here. So eye contact and attention, minimal prompts, yes or no. So nodding your head that you understand. Open questions, how are you feeling? And then communicates you are important, I'm listening, I'm interested, concerned. Active listening techniques also being fully present in the conversation, showing, like we said, by practicing eye contact, noticing non-verbal cues. As we mentioned, open questions, asking open questions, paraphrasing and reflecting back what you have said to the person. So it shows that you are listening. If you are listening to someone and then at the end of it, you're not able to tell the person what you're saying by paraphrasing and reflecting back, it shows that you're not listening, doesn't it? So you need to be paraphrasing, listening to understanding rather than responding. In communication, active listening is important because it keeps you engaged with your conversation partner in a positive way. It makes the other one feel heard and valued. This skill is the foundation of successful conversation in any setting, whether at work, at home, or social situations. So, it's good to be fully present, being in the conversation. It's good to pay attention to non-verbal cues. It's good to keep good eye contact, as we mentioned. It's good to ask open-ended questions. So things like, how are you feeling? Can you tell me a bit more about yourself? Reflect on what you hear. Be patient. So important. Why is it so important to be patient, especially in the healthcare profession?
Because the patient needs a
What if the patient is just found out that they have got 6 months to live? Why must you be patient? Because they might be crying. They might be upset.
oh
And you know, when you know, you need to understand that it's important that you have the ability to listen to that person. And you know, if you don't want to talk to the person, you know, nod your head, say, how are you feeling? You know, do prompts. You know, it's important that you're able to identify them to that you are listening, because you know, it's so important, especially again in the health and social care profession. Active listening is so important, because we have to listen to patients that may be, you know, dying. You might have to listen to patients that, you know, may
Yes.
need, you know, assistance in, you know, maybe old, maybe disabled, you know. And if you listen to them, it makes them feel like they are being understood and listened to. Blocks to effective listening. So health and professionals' own problems. What could that be? What do you think that could be?
Sometimes
So it could be maybe they've got own problems at home and stuff. Health professional stress and anxiety. Feel that you do not have enough time. Sometimes it's awkward and uncomfortable. Sometimes lack of attention to listening behavior. Value judgments and interpretations on the behalf of the healthcare professional. Aids to effective listening, attention. Suspension of judgment by the healthcare profession. Attention to the behavioral aspects of listening. Avoidance of interpretation, and sensible use of minimal prompts. You know, it's so important that you are able to, you know, leave your problems at home. You know, it's, you know, not bring them to work, because sometimes it does, you know, there could be things like, you know, barriers, could be physical barriers, language barriers, as we mentioned earlier. You know, there could be things like, you know, that the health and care professional may have issues at home. You know, it's really important. If you have barriers in place, are you listening properly to the individual?
okay.
If there are barriers in place, do you think you're listening properly to what the individual is saying?
No,
You
sometimes
might have problems at home, okay? And when someone's talking to you, you may not be listening properly. You know, you might be thinking about your problems at home. So, you know, you need to be able to identify that you are paying full attention to that individual. Another one, right, what we mentioned were cultural barriers, emotional barriers. You know, they may have an impact on active listening. And so you need to make sure that you leave any sort of barriers at home. It's difficult sometimes, you know, and the other big barrier would be language barriers. You know, when two or more people are communicating, they don't speak the same native language or have distinctly different accents. Language barriers can also emerge within the same language if the parties are from different regions. So, you know, language barriers play a big part of, you know, not understanding some things and getting things wrong as well. You know, if a person doesn't understand you or you don't understand them, then, you know, it could identify that, you know, you've got something wrong, maybe about medication or maybe about their sleeping pattern. Also, another barrier could be the tone of your voice. You know, not everyone will react to different tones of voice. Some people are quite loud, but don't mean to be loud, but just, you know, that could be quite upsetting for some people. So you need to take into account the different blocks to effective listening. 2M1, use appropriate methods, including technology and other aids to present information orally. So communication aids. Technology has increased, how do you think communication aids are important in communicating?
sorry.
How do you think communication aids are important in communicating with people? So that could be things like, you know,
Because
technology.
some people cannot understand the language very much
Yeah.
as well.
And maybe, you know, Braille. Some people need to, you know, have Braille or maybe have the loop thing if they can't hear. You know,
Yeah.
technology has enabled an increasing number of electronic and digital aids to communication that can help people who have difficulty speaking. So like we said, people that have issues with any sort of if they're blind or if they can't hear, there's devices available for them. Many of these devices enable messages to be recorded and stored and played at the touch of a button. The devices range in sophistication and price. Information, advice, and guidance on choosing the most suitable devices is available from speech and language therapists to whom a referral can be made within the NHS. 2D1. Manage and facilitate a question and answer session to demonstrate subject knowledge and assess effectiveness of your own oral communication skills. Here you need to conduct a question and answer session with your tutor. To obtain information, the primary function of a question is to gain information. So what time is it? To help maintain control of a conversation. While you are asking questions, you are in control of the conversation. Assertive people are more likely to take control of the conversations, attempting to gain the information they need through questioning. Also, see our pages on assertive on Moodle. Express an interest in the other person. Questioning allows us to find out more about the respondent. This can be useful when attempting to build rapport and show empathy, or to simply get to know the other person. Also look at the handout on building rapport and empathy. To clarify a point, questions are commonly used in communication to clarify something that the speaker said. Questions used as clarification are essential in reducing misunderstanding, therefore more effective communication. What I'm going to do now is we've got a video to watch, okay, and that's on the communication skills as well and the different types. So I'll just put that video on for you, okay? Just give me 1 minute. So, just about the video now, what did you think of the video, Ashu? Did you think that it helped in regards to how important communication skills is within the health and social care setting?
Really important, a proper communication and a proper
Yeah.
relationship with other persons.
Yeah. Does it impact on, you know, you have to be empathetic, you have to be patient, you know, you have to take into account different personalities, the video said, you know, because you have to look at your body language, you need to listen more and talk less. And what they say is you need to take notes. Why is it important to take notes?
So future purpose.
Yeah, if you're reflecting back to the person and talking back to the person, telling them that you've been listening to them, you need to take notes to show that you are listening. And it shows, you know, in the health and care, social care profession, communication skills is so important because it can save people's lives as well. So if you need to go on to any of these stuff on 2D1, they're on Moodle, but you can just click on them as well. Some of the references that have been used for today's session are just listed there. Perceived professional support by Booth, Department of Health, the NHS Cancer Plan, Department of Health, Cancer Reform Strategy and End of Life Strategy. Jenkins, effective communication skills are key to good cancer care, and listening attended. And the links are all there for you to have a look at. Have you got any questions? There's some more links just there as well. Have you got any questions, Ashu?
No, please.
Okay, so we've finished learning outcome 2 today, and then tomorrow at 10 o'clock is learning outcome 3. So I hope to see you tomorrow, and thank you for your patience. And I will see you in tomorrow's session. Is that okay?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay then. Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.